there, welcome to the Millennial Book Junkie. My name is Monique, and today we are going to be comparing the book Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesar to the movie. The movie came out on May 9th of 2025. The book, I believe, was published around 2020. I just read the book right before the movie came out, so let's talk about some of the differences, similarities, and overall what I thought of it. So the book follows a young girl named Quinn who has just moved to Kettle Springs, Missouri with her father for a fresh start. Her mother has passed away, so they are just looking for a fresh start in a new town, in a new state. When they get there, however, things are a little weird. It's different from where they came from in Philadelphia. Things are a little more run down, and we find out that the reason why the town is kind of in disarray and kind of looking very old school and run down is because there's this factory that used to create corn syrup for the town that really generated a lot of jobs and income, and the factory burnt down. There was a loss of a lot of business, and so now the town is kind of collapsing / falling apart. Also, there's like this rift between the adults in the town and the teenagers in the town. And then also there's a killer clown on the loose to make things just a little bit more fun. The clown is actually the mascot of the factory that burnt down, and his name is Friendo. The town actually loves this mascot, Friendo, but nobody really knows that apparently this Friendo is a maniac that is just out to kill people. Essentially, that's what the book is about, and the movie follows the same plot. The great thing about the book was that it was very nostalgic. I found this very interesting because it kind of blended today's kids, but also it brought up things that only maybe a millennial would understand. Like, there was a part in here where Quinn, the main character, talks about wind beneath my wings, and that is very Bette Midler, and I'm not sure how many of today's kids would have known that song reference. So I found it really interesting that some of the stuff in this book, you know, kind of harkened back to millennials, and I was kind of trying to figure out, is this in today's times with today's kids? Because I don't know if today's kids know much about Bette Midler. Maybe they do, but you know, as a millennial, I was like, interesting dynamic here. And the movie essentially follows the same plot. You have Quinn arriving in a new town with her father, who's kind of goofy, and he's also a doctor, just like he is in the book. And then you have Quinn meeting people, meeting new kids. She actually starts meeting the popular kids, which happens in the book. And so the movie kind of very closely follows like the main essential plot of the book, where she meets these kids. The kids end up going to this party in a cornfield, and of course a killer clown shows up, because why not? And I also feel like it's really great that this author decided to put a killer clown in a cornfield, because that's like two scary things and two traditionally scary things. So I think it's really interesting that he put a clown in a cornfield, because like everyone knows cornfields are scary. I mean, signs, children of the corn, and then clowns, don't even get me started. So this clown shows up at the party, and so essentially these children, these kids, I keep calling them children, but they're teenagers, are trying to survive, trying to run for their lives. But we find out that there's this huge rift between the adults in the town and the teenagers. And the adults in the town are very traditional. They want to keep things the same way. And the kids in the town are just trying to like grow their YouTube channel and do fun stunts and have parties and drink. I mean, classic high school stuff that essentially I never did when I was in high school, but classic high school stuff. And so the movie kind of had a lot of the same vibes as the book. It was very nostalgic. It reminded me a bit of Scream. It reminded me a bit of maybe Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes, because there was like a chainsaw involved. I have not seen Terrifier, but just from the cover of the movie, which is actually the cover of this book, it gave me like Terrifier vibes, which I've never seen Terrifier, but I was like, is this gonna be like a Terrifier thing? And there was also, because this movie was kind of based in a town where the factory was like right in the middle of a cornfield, it did kind of give me that Children of the Corn vibes, Stephen King. So I wasn't sure what to expect when I walked into this movie, because like I said, it was very nostalgic in the book. And then when I walked into the movie, I was like, I wonder if it's also gonna be kind of like slasher, like old school vibes in the movie. And I was like, is it gonna be scary, or is it gonna be just like really cool and nostalgic? I don't know if you've seen the movie Thanksgiving, but that was really well done because it reminded me of Scream. and it was cheesy, but also it was really good. So I was kind of thinking maybe Clown in a Cornfield would be kind of that way. Of course, in terms of like the differences between the book and the movie, there was differences in the key roles that some of the characters played. The kids kind of had a larger role in the book. There were two teenagers in this book that were part of the crew that Quinn finds herself in. Their names were Matt and Ronnie. They had a very big role in this book and not so much in the movie. I feel like Matt and Ronnie in the movie kind of had, smaller parts than they did in the book. I won't give any spoilers, but I actually kind of thought their characters were really funny in the book. And so they didn't really get so much screen time in the movie, but that's okay. I think it kind of worked with what they were trying to go for. But a lot of the stuff that I pictured in the book happened in the movie. There's a scene where one of the teenagers gets kind of creeped out by this clown on his front porch, and that in the film was very similar to what I kind of imagined it in my head. Also, the fact that the town was supposed to be kind of like old school, traditional, kind of rundown. I think the film did a really good job portraying the town, and also kind of an interesting job portraying the kids and the teenagers in the book. I felt like their attitudes and just like the way that they talked and stuff, I feel like that was really well captured in the movie too. It's interesting too, I will say, because there's a little bit of the nostalgia in this book / movie reminds me of It, Stephen King. Again, killer clown. And I'm just realizing that now Stephen King has a killer clown book and a Cornfield book. Interesting. But in this book and movie, there's also a little bit of that It vibe where the kids are kind of like on their own from the adults. And that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me about the book as well. Like as I was reading it, I was like, this reminds me of It, because in It, the kids really couldn't tell the adults that they were being attacked by this killer clown because adults could not see the killer clown. And so the adults kind of like had this thing where they were like not an aid to the kids. They were not helping the kids. The kids were kind of on their own. And that definitely shines through in this book as well. The one thing I will say though is I actually thought that the main character Quinn in the movie was more of a brat than she was in the book. I felt like in the movie, maybe it's just because I wasn't confident as a teenager, so I'm always like suspicious of confident teenagers. But in the book, she seemed to really kind of have a special kind of love for her dad because they had just moved to the town, like I said, and her dad was grieving her mom and she was kind of like trying to make the best of it. I feel like that didn't really show through as much in the movie. I felt like in the movie, the main character kind of annoyed me a little bit. And I feel like she also, the actress at times was a little bit, the acting was just too much, like to the point where like I could see that she was acting. And so I feel like at times that character for me was kind of like a little over the top, but she did a great job. I just think that I liked her character more in the book than in the movie. I also feel like the kids in the book had just a little bit more depth. I feel like in the movie, they just came off as a little bit ditzy. The movie also moved very quickly. It wasn't that long. And so I just felt like, with any book to movie adaptation, obviously the characters are more well-rounded in the book. And I definitely think that was the case here. I found the kids really interesting in the book, and in the movie, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, some of them are just brats and that was it. So I felt like I actually liked some of like the snarky stuff they were doing and saying in the book more. And so that was one other difference that was interesting. But the ending scene actually very much played out in the movie the same way it played out in my head. And it was really funny because I actually finished this book right the night before I saw the movie. So as I was watching the ending, I was like, oh my God, I already saw this in my head last night. There's like an ending scene where they're like in this barn, or maybe it was the factory. But anyway, that scene I think played out very well on screen because I really pictured it like that in my head. Also, I really like that they cast Kevin Durand as Arthur Hill in this book. Kevin Durand is an actor that I actually did not know where he was from when I was watching the movie. He plays the dad of Cole Hill, who is one of the popular guys, that attracts Quinn's eye in the book / movie. And so Arthur Hill played by Kevin Durant, the whole movie I was like, he looks so familiar. Where do I know him from? And to me, he was like the most well-known actor in the film because I was like, I know this guy from somewhere. And he's actually from a movie that I watched last year called Abigail. You should check it out if you haven't. It's like a vampire movie. I don't usually watch too much vampire movies, but that one was really interesting. It's really good. It's really a fun it's a fun one. But he's in that movie. And so when I saw him in this movie, I was like, where do I know him from? And he's from Abigail. So I thought that was interesting. Overall, though, I really did like the slasher vibes, like slasher movie vibes of this movie. I did feel like it was kind of cheesy at times, which I don't think this movie was trying to take itself too seriously. I think it was trying to be fun. It's definitely not a scary movie. If you're worried about the movie being scary, I would say don't worry. It's not. I feel like it's probably just like a fun, campy, nostalgic horror movie that you could see and laugh about and not really be afraid of. There were some parts in the movie that I just felt like I could not feel like, oh, this is a really good, fun movie. Like I felt about Thanksgiving. I just felt like there's a fine line between a movie being like cheesy in a good way and cheesy in a bad way. And not to say that this movie was cheesy in a bad way, but I kind of was like not buying into it at some parts. I think because the movie did go pretty quickly that I was like, I don't know, this was more fun in my head and this is more fun in the book. So, I mean, I think there were parts that I just felt like weren't as fun on the screen as they were in the book. The book I really enjoyed, actually. Like, it reminded me of like when I was younger and I would read Goosebumps books, and I don't know, there was scenes in here where I was like, oh my gosh, someone's about to die, don't open that door kind of thing. And the movie had some of that, but I felt like the book was way better. I don't think the movie was terrible though, but I don't think it landed for me in terms of being like, oh, this is like a great campy horror slasher movie that I could like really get behind and tell people that they need to see, kind of like I did with Thanksgiving. And so I think that it was a little bit of a disappointment in that regard, but I think it was still fun. Like, it was a fun movie to watch. Like I said, it is not scary. The book, if anything, is a little creepier than the movie, I would say. But the book was really fun. Like, if you like those types of movies that are like Scream and like slasher movies, Halloween, I think you'll like the book. I don't know if you've read the book or seen the movie or if you plan to, but if you do, or if you have read it or seen it, let me know what you thought. I really love going to the movies. It's like my favorite thing ever. And so I was really, really excited to see this movie, and I don't have any regrets. I mean, it was a fun time, but I think it would have been cooler if maybe they could have gone a little more in depth in the characters a little bit. I always have high expectations for movies after reading a book. I always feel like everything that happened in the book is going to happen exactly like that in the movies. And of course it never does. So I'm always kind of let down in a way, but overall, it was a fun ride. They did change some things, but overall, I felt like they really stayed close to the plot of the story. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about this movie, about this book. This book actually also has sequel. There's like part two and a part three. So I could definitely see myself reading the other books, and I'm curious about other stuff that this author has written, because I feel like this author is close to my age, and I feel like he just gets that like millennial nostalgia. Overall, really fun. And I'm so glad that I was able to see the movie so closely after reading the book. And I'm so grateful that I got to read this book, and I will most likely read the other two as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.